Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls for a holistic and inclusive approach to address global health concerns. Leaders of the US, Japan and South Korea to meet at a crucial trilateral summit to discuss security and economic cooperation. New York City bans TikTok on government devices amidst growing security concerns. Young Indian Grandmaster R. Pragnananda to meet world number 2 Fabiana Caruana in the semi-final of the Chess World Cup. A milestone moment for the US, Japan and South Korea, with the leaders of the three nations meeting for a history-making summit in Washington, D.C. US President Joe Biden is hosting the Japanese and South Korean heads for the first time, with plans to fortify a three-way alliance amid concerns about North Korean missile tests and China's approach to the Indo-Pacific region. The Asian nations were barely on speaking terms 2 years ago, and now Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and President Yoon Suk-yeol will become the first foreign leaders to visit Camp David since 2015. And Caroline Malone is now with us from Washington, D.C. Caroline, what is the main agenda of this trilateral summit?
Well, absolutely. I spoke and heard just yesterday from senior Biden administration officials. And from their perspective, this is really an unprecedented meeting between the leaders of these three countries. And it's taken a long time to get here. They said if you'd asked them just a year ago, they wouldn't have believed that they could have get the three leaders of these three countries into the same room for these talks. And part of the reasoning for that is the history that dates back to the early 20th century. And that was, the world wars that happened at the time. And in particular, that Japan occupied parts of South Korea at that time. And it was only recently that Japan and South Korea have managed to resolve their differences over that, particularly over the issue of comfort women, as they call them, and managed to talk directly and improve both diplomacy and also their economic ties. Now, from the US perspective, that is in large part due to the diplomacy of Yoon and also of Kishida that they've managed to get to this point. And they do see it as being absolutely unprecedented to have the three leaders at Camp David, which is a venue that is really reserved for the highest level important events here in the United States.
So what is the driving force then of this bilateral grouping? Is it likely to take a formal shape like AUKUS, for instance?
Well, absolutely. We are hearing that some of the deliverables that could come out of today's meetings include having a hotline between these three leaders. And they may need a hotline because from their perspective, they are concerned over two major things. One is China's increasingly aggressive action in the South China Sea, particularly when it comes to Taiwan, but also North Korea and North Korea's continued ballistic missile testing. And that has led in the past for the US and South Korea to come to an agreement that includes allowing nuclear-powered submarines, nuclear-armed submarines, I should say, from the US to be docked in South Korea. That's the first time that's happened in many decades. It's also led to AUKUS as well, that we've heard about. The UK and Australia are involved. And also, of course, the Quad meetings that include India and Japan. And really the US trying to formalize its ties, improve its ties with allies in the region. So a hotline could be set up between these three leaders so that they can talk to each other at any time of crisis going forward, and a duty to consult each other so that even in future administrations, no matter who is in charge of these countries, they do have the authority and the legitimacy to really talk to each other on a hotline. Also, trilateral meetings, trilateral summits going forward between the US, South Korea and Japan. And also military drills, and that, of course, is to fend up their communications between the three countries, both on a military level, but also diplomacy, economic, and technology.
Caroline Malone, thanks very much for joining us from Washington. Now, while this meeting is taking place, Japan will reportedly start releasing its treated radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant by the end of this month. The dumping of the water may happen days after the trilateral summit between the US, Japan and South Korea, which is scheduled later today. The decision to release contaminated water into the ocean is likely to affect the already weak relations between Japan and South Korea. DD India correspondent Chris Gilbert, in fact, in Tokyo had filed this report, but we'll get to that report in a little while. We are joined by Dr. Anshu Joshi, who's the professor of US Studies at the School of International Studies, JNU. But we'll play out what Chris Gilbert had sent us a little earlier. Well, we are having a little problem with the audio of that, but let me turn to Professor Joshi once again. How stable is this three-way relationship, do you see? Is there enough to keep Japan and South Korea together?
Considering the past weak relationship, I should say, between Japan and South Korea, many experts may have an exclamation mark on this trilateral summit and relationship among United States of America, Japan, and South Korea. But Mark, we should not forget that global politics is actually a complex maze where different players play to attain more power and secure their national interests. And while doing so, they cross each other's ways. So at times they compete with each other, at times they collaborate with each other, considering their common objectives. So when we look at the situation around in global politics presently, we clearly see that for all these three nations, be it United States of America, or be it South Korea, or be it Japan, for all these three nations, stability and security of Indo-Pacific region, and unilaterally, the aggression that is coming from China is a major area of concern. And that is the reason this historic trilateral meeting is happening among these three countries. And apart from China, I also do see North Korea as the common irritant or as a common challenge. That actually is a reason why these three countries have come up together. Bilaterally, already United States of America and South Korea are engaged in different military exercises and agreements. Bilaterally, we know what kind of relationship United States of America and Japan have. So we do see a lot of common engagement in security and defense area between United States of America and Japan as well. So now trilaterally, I think United States of America would be working as a binding force to keep this united force dynamic and will strengthen this relationship.
But what's the objective, Professor Joshi? Is this, a mini NATO? Is it linked to Quad, AUKUS, from the US point of view?
For United States of America, we can see there are already different military and other alliances. So there is Quad, there is AUKUS, and multilaterally also there are different platforms wherein United States of America does talk about the challenges posed by China in Indo-Pacific region, in South China Sea, and so on. And there United States of America already gets support from many countries, including India. So Mark, I think that it is mostly related to multilaterally. Related to the regional as well as global security. As in, we clearly see that how in the name of debt diplomacy, in the name of the string of pearls diplomacy, in the name of this Belt and Road Initiative, how China has very smartly asserted its position and its control in the global politics. But unilaterally, I do see competition with China as the most important reason, because we know that United States of America is world's largest economy and China follows it. It is world's second largest economy. So
Yes.
obviously there are two big competitors, and that is why now United States of America is trying to create a lobby.
Professor Anshu Joshi, thank you very much for your insights. Now let's move on. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has addressed the G20 Health Ministers meeting in the western state of Gujarat. Prime Minister Modi stressed that COVID-19 pandemic has shown the world the value of international cooperation.
The COVID-19 pandemic has reminded us that health should be at the center of our decisions. It also showed us the value of international cooperation.
And highlighting the government of India's initiatives, the Prime Minister of India went on to say that the nation follows a holistic and inclusive approach.
In India, we are following a holistic and inclusive approach. We are expanding health infrastructure, promoting traditional system of medicine, and providing affordable health care to all.
The Prime Minister then stressed that the world must be ready to prevent, prepare, and respond to the next health emergency.
We must be ready to prevent, prepare, and respond to the next health emergency. This is especially important in today's interconnected world. As we saw during the pandemic, health issues in one part of the world can affect all other parts of the world in a very short time.
19 member countries are participating in the meeting, which focuses on 3 priority areas: health emergency prevention, preparedness, further cooperation in the fields of pharmaceuticals and digital health. India's Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia also spoke.
India prioritized health emergency prevention, preparedness, and response, placing emphasis on the One Health approach, recognizing that the well-being of our communities depends on the harmonious balance in the ecosystem.
And continuing with the G20, India held a bilateral meeting with Japan today. It was unanimously agreed that the G20 has a crucial role to play in strengthening cooperation on the important issue of global health security. India's health minister also met with the US Health Secretary, who praised India for the leadership it's delivered in the lead up to the G20. Javier Becerra also highlighted India's involvement in cancer treatment and research. A joint finance health ministers meeting will now take place on Saturday. And under India's G20 presidency, the global initiative on digital health will also be launched. A 4-day youth summit kicked off in the historic city of Varanasi today. The summit serves as a platform for negotiating and signing the Y20 communique, which aims at amplifying young voices and influencing high-level policy decisions. India's Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports, Anurag Thakur, says that it's instrumental in molding the global economic narrative, especially for young people.
By 2030, the youth will dominate the global demographic, with a considerable portion hailing from South Asia. With them lies the collective responsibility to influence global narratives and collaborative efforts. As we set our sights on future with an ever-changing landscape and the ever-evolving aspirations of the youth, it becomes crucial for the youth to adopt a flexible and forward-looking stance.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. The world witnesses extreme weather events with record temperature and rapid ice melt. Canada battles deadly wildfires, over 20,000 forced to evacuate. Britney Spears and husband Sam Ashgari decide to end their marriage after just 14 months.
Tell us about your decision to set up a Hindu caucus for the US Congress.
I saw a lot of attacks on Hinduism. It is for protecting Hindu religion.
How do you look at the way Prime Minister Narendra Modi is shaping the Indian presidency?
Not only United States, but rest of the world respect India because what India is able to achieve.
President Biden's executive order prohibiting new investments from the US to China, particularly in sensitive technologies.
With China, America lost its manufacturing base. It's a losing proposition for America. India can be a winning proposition.
What is your position on the attacks on Indian consulate, for instance, in San Francisco, that pro-Palestine elements?
I have no sympathy to a separatist movement.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Coming up, the two-day summit on G20 Digital Innovation Alliance is going on in India's southern city of Bengaluru, and the summit is focused on discussing digital public infrastructure, security in the digital economy, and digital skilling. As part of India's G20 presidency, the G20 Digital Innovation Alliance initiative recognizes and accelerates the growth of startups from all G20 countries and 9 invited guest countries. And DD India's Aisha Khanam now joins us from Bengaluru. Well, Aisha, so the meeting is coming to an end. Can we expect the outcomes?
Well, Mark, the Digital Economy Working Group meeting will end in few minutes from now, and the outcome document will be ready, but this will be forwarded to the ministerial meeting, wherein the G20 information technology ministers will be participating today, and tomorrow this day-long meeting will discuss the outcome document, which the Digital Working Group meeting has finalized and negotiated today. And we were told that there are about 35 paras in the document, and the important aspect being scaling the digital public infrastructure and skilling, and also cyber security. These are the 3 important issues that the world requires now to strengthen the digital economy. And also the G20 nations have recognized that digital economy is the tool for driving the world economies. And this is where at G20, the Digital Innovation Alliance has also come into being, wherein the startups and the unicorns from all the G20 nations are working together. And this will be a platform to share knowledge and to invest and for business among these G20 countries. We saw a lot of youngsters, startups and unicorns from other countries also pitching, for business with the G20 nations and the leaders who are attending this meeting.
Yes,
so tomorrow will be a big day wherein the statement, the outcome document will be read out by the India's Minister for Technology, Ashwini Vaishnav, and he will make this public at a press conference at 4 p.m. tomorrow.
Aisha, we also saw, we were showing our viewers that a particular construction of a post office was being done by 3D printing, and the minister had walked through that. And you're in the Silicon Valley of India. So tell us, put that into context about the expectations from such a summit.
Well, India is the IT capital, Bangalore is the IT capital of India, and it is considered as the Silicon Valley, and this is the place which has the ecosystem for IT in India, and also Bangalore is recognized as the most favored destination for IT resource and also IT engineers. And this is the place wherein countries like USA, UK have their outsourced projects, and they work in collaboration with the tech giants based in Bangalore. Like remember, Infosys, Wipro, and several other IT companies have been working with US and UK and several other countries. So
Right.
Bangalore is recognized as the IT capital of India, and this is the most favored destination for its IT innovations and for its IT related research as well. So, and also the
Yes,
delegates
Aisha.
here, most of them took time out to visit some tech giants in Bangalore and share knowledge and exchange of ideas. So Bangalore has been proved to be a best template so far in the digital economy working group meet, wherein the G20 countries agreed that a similar
Yes, Aisha.
ecosystem set up in the lower income group of countries.
Aisha Khanam from Bangalore, thanks very much. DD India, the international English news channel of Doordarshan, is gearing up for next month's G20 summit in New Delhi. Vishal Barrister spoke exclusively to Apurva Chandra, the Secretary of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, the top official in the ministry, who says that there's high expectations from this new international channel.
The countdown for G20 has begun, and as public broadcaster, Doordarshan has a very important role and responsibility to play. I have with me Secretary INB. Let's talk to him and find out. Sir, with G20 coming up, how do you see the role of Doordarshan?
Doordarshan, of course, has a very, very important role to play, because when all the 40 heads of nations, they come here and they converge for the G20 summit, then Doordarshan will be the one who will be providing the feed to all the entire world, in fact. In fact, the Doordarshan team would be stationed in the Bharat Mandapam, and then Doordarshan is also preparing special 2 studios in the media center. And there will be certain areas which will be available only to Doordarshan. For example, the opening speech of the Prime Minister, the opening ceremony, and then the closing ceremony, then the bilaterals, which will be of our own Prime Minister. They will be available only to Doordarshan, and Doordarshan would be making those feeds available to the entire world. In fact, the entire world would be watching what Doordarshan is doing.
Yeah, absolutely, Doordarshan News has got to play a very, very important role. But at the same time, DD India, which is our international English channel, has also a major role to play. So how are the preparations, and what do you have to say on that?
DD India has made very major changes in the past 2 months or so in preparation for G20. The entire look has been changed. Several new programs have come up. And I'm sure that DD India would be watched not only in India but in other parts of the world, and DD will make a good name for itself. The way the changes are happening in DD, it bodes very well for the future of Doordarshan.
So there you heard the Secretary INB. He says that Doordarshan News and DD India, which is our international English channel, will live up to the expectation, and Doordarshan has always performed to its best. With cameraman Pramod Negi and Kamlesh in Delhi, this is Vishal Barrister for DD India.
Let's take a look at other stories making news. The Indian Supreme Court has declared that hate speeches will be handled in accordance with the law. From now on, all instances will be treated with impartiality regardless of their origin. The decision follows a hate speech incident during a rally held by the Indian Union Muslim League in India's Kerala state. The court decided to postpone a case brought by various groups calling for a Muslim boycott until August 25th. Up to 70 villages in the Indian state of Punjab have been impacted by flooding. Heavy rainfall has prompted authorities to release excess water from the Pong and Bhakra dams. Rescue teams, assisted by military personnel, relocated over 5,500 people to relief shelters. Bhagwant Mann, who's the chief minister of the state, visited the flood-affected regions to assess the damage. Search and rescue efforts continue in the landslide-hit region of India's Himachal Pradesh. Shimla town has witnessed 22 rain-related deaths since Monday, with at least 78 fatalities recorded across the state. Rescue teams are focused on evacuating people from vulnerable areas. Army chiefs of the Western African Bloc said they are ready to intervene and restore peace in Niger. The ECOWAS has activated a standby force following last month's coup.
A sternly worded message from the army chiefs in West Africa. They have criticized and accused the junta of not wanting to engage politically and diplomatically.
They are pretending, that, oh, now they are ready for talks. But even as they are telling us that they are ready for talks, they are still seeking reasons to justify an unjustifiable coup d'etat.
The army chiefs have also emphasized their commitment to reinstating constitutional order. They maintain that if peaceful efforts fail, they are prepared to intervene.
Let no one be in doubt that if everything else fails, the valiant forces of West Africa, both the military and the civilian components, are ready to answer to the call of duty.
Meanwhile, in a tragic turn of events, at least 36 Nigerian soldiers have lost their lives in 2 separate attacks. The battles occurred when they fought off armed gangs in the northern central state of the country. Bureau Report, DD India.
And DD India correspondent Ajay Mangut gets us this report from Abuja.
Well, ECOWAS has said that it's going to intervene in Niger if all else fails in terms of diplomacy to try and restore constitutional order in Niger. The defense chiefs began a meeting in Ghana yesterday to activate a standby force that would, intervene in Niger if the mediation or diplomatic channels to negotiate with the military junta fails. And we expect that meeting to round up today, where the details and the logistics would be finalized in activating the standby force. But of course, there are concerns as to the impact that this military intervention could have if ECOWAS indeed decides to go ahead with the intervention. There are fears that it could lead to a regional war in the West Africa region, because countries like Burkina Faso, Mali, have declared their support for the military junta, and they've said that any intervention would be a declaration of war. But we understand that most of the member states of ECOWAS have expressed their readiness to participate in the activation of this standby force, except for those who are under military rule. Talking about Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, and also Cape Verde has opted to not participate in this military standby force.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. New York City bans TikTok on government-owned devices over security concerns. Unrest in Pakistan continues. Protests in Karachi following violent attacks on the Christian community. And humanoid robots are winning praise for their natural movements, expressions and gestures at the World Robot Conference in China's capital, Beijing.
The Prime Minister addressed countrymen as his family, mere parivarjano, setting the agenda for the politics of the coming months.
One is through identity, consciousness, and on the other hand, BJP is trying to address the marginality.
Opposition is really finding it hard to find a credible, logical narrative against this appeasement attack.
With a majority like this, if the Prime Minister does not take the bold decisions that he has taken, then who will?
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has addressed the G20 Health Ministers meeting in the western state of Gujarat. He stressed the need for international cooperation, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. Leaders of the US, Japan and South Korea to meet at a crucial trilateral summit to discuss security and economic cooperation. And residents in Canada are reeling as deadly wildfires continue to spread across the country. More than 20,000 people have been forced to evacuate. The Chandrayaan-3 lander has completed its first deboost operation today. It is the first such operation after its separation from its mothership, the propulsion module. And with today's operation, the lander Vikram has moved further close to the moon in an orbit of 113 by 157 kilometers. India's National Space Agency, ISRO, is set to repeat a similar operation in the wee hours on Sunday at about 2 a.m. The deboost operations are aimed at bringing the lander Vikram ultimately at a distance of about 30 kilometers to its nearest point to the moon on the 23rd of this month, when it is scheduled to have a soft landing near the South Pole. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Singer Britney Spears and husband Sam Asghari have decided to end their marriage after being together for 14 months. Asghari has filed for divorce from the singer, citing irreconcilable differences. The 29-year-old Asghari and the 41-year-old Spears got married last year after she was released from a legal conservatorship. Asghari is also seeking spousal support and payment of legal fees from Britney Spears. Amidst concerns, growing security concerns over the possible Chinese government influence in New York, the city there has now banned TikTok on government devices, calling the short video sharing app a cybersecurity threat. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has cautioned about the possible impact of the app on New Yorkers' data. New York City agencies have been asked to remove TikTok within 30 days, joining a number of U.S. cities that have already restricted the app. Human-like robots are stealing the show at the World Robot Conference in China's capital, Beijing. The humanoid robots are winning praise for their natural movements, expressions, and gestures. An engineer at X Robots said that the upgrade has enabled the humanoids to move more naturally and have more subtle micro-expressions. With Hawaii trying to recover from deadly wildfires to concerns about potential potential food crisis in North Korea in the wake of Typhoon Kanun, the world is witnessing extreme weather events with record temperatures and rapid ice melt. We have more in this next report.
Catastrophe has gripped Hawaii as the impact of deadly wildfires continues to be felt. The death toll due to the wildfires on the island of Maui has reached 111 and is expected to climb. Amid massive criticism from locals over the island's response to the wildfires, Maui's emergency chief, Herman Andaya, has resigned, citing health concerns. The sudden step down comes just a day after defending the move to not sound a tsunami alert in response to the blaze. The wildfires in Hawaii have been termed as one of the deadliest in the United States in over a century. Infernos and evacuation scenes have become a common sight around the world over recent weeks. In Canada, social media videos showed wildfires burning in British Columbia as authorities evacuated masses of residents from the region. And in Europe, wildfires have caused havoc. Thousands have been left temporarily homeless in Tenerife.
Civil Protection Alert. Alert from Canary Islands 112. Due to the active wildfire in the Tenerife Island, which is affecting now El Rosario municipality, we proceed to lock down the urban area of La Esperanza.
The world is witnessing the fury of nature. Last week, the Korean peninsula was hit by Typhoon Khanun. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un inspected the damage caused by the typhoon. With Bureau Inputs, DD India.
Residents in Canada are reeling as deadly wildfires continue to spread across the country. More than 20,000 people have been forced to evacuate, with orders for many more to flee their homes. DD India's Abhishek Bose has this update.
Ferocious wildfires are causing havoc in Western Canada, with fire crews battling the worst blazes seen in more than 3 decades. The air is thick with smoke and people are struggling to breathe as air quality plummets. Life has turned upside down in Yellowknife in northwestern Canada, where more than 20,000 residents have been forced to evacuate.
We moved up to Yellowknife in 1976. We've never ever seen a wildfire season like this.
Nobody envisioned an event of this scale, and it was just, and it's still really stressful. There's a lot of people left in Yellowknife that are freaking out.
Fire crews are working around the clock to douse the flames as thick smoke engulfs the Northwest Territories. Residents in British Columbia have now been warned to prepare for extreme conditions. And satellite imagery has shown smoke billowing from the fires along the US-Canada border. 4 firefighters have now been killed by the unforgiving wildfires. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is now expected to chair an emergency meeting with ministers. Officials say climate change and drought are to blame, and a dry spring, high temperatures, and low snowfall have further fueled the flames. The worst may not be over yet either, with conditions only set to worsen across Canada until September. Abhishek Bose for DD India.
Reports say North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has visited farmlands hit by the recent typhoon, and he also oversaw the spraying of pesticides in the aftermath of last week's storm, one of the worst to hit the region. The devastation that Typhoon Khanun brought to North Korea adds to concerns about food security in the country. DD India's Patrick Falk reports.
Well, as we know, Khanun was an incredibly powerful typhoon that swept across East Asia and did a lot of damage to South Korea. We can only imagine the level of destruction it brought to North Korea, where infrastructure is considerably weaker. We do know from state media reports that around 200 hectares of farmland in Onbyeon County were flooded as a result of the typhoon, and there are concerns about food security in North Korea, and there may very well also be concerns about political stability as a result of that. It was only a few days ago that state media reported Kim Jong-un as lashing out at officials for failing to manage the typhoon properly, and now it's projecting this idea that their leader is doing everything he can to prevent the situation from getting worse, and saying that not even an inch of farmland can be sacrificed. So again, it paints this picture of a very bad situation in the country. And North Korea is no stranger to famine. It suffered severe famine in the 1990s, and this situation now is also being exacerbated.
And Japan's consumer price growth slowed in July. The core inflation rate, excluding volatile fresh food prices, decreased by 0.2% from the previous month. This decline was influenced by falling energy prices. It comes as central bankers weigh up whether to raise interest rates. The cost of ice cream has doubled in just a month in Argentina as the country battles runaway inflation. Shoppers and businesses are struggling with inflation topping almost 115%. The Writers Guild of America says that it is evaluating a counter-proposal from television and film studios that could see progress in the labor stoppage that has now stretched on for more than 100 days. But big questions remain for many of the writers, such as how to make enough money from the increasing powerful streaming platforms. Ira Spitzer reports from New York.
It's been a summer of discontent for film and television writers and actors in the U.S. For months, they've been out on the streets, rain or shine, in Hollywood and here in New York, bringing productions to a standstill.
You know, the studios have really gone overboard with their insults and how they've been treating every single one of us, from the actor in front, from the writers.
The Writers Guild of America calls it an existential crisis. As streaming services have brought massive industry changes, writers and actors say their pay structure hasn't changed with the times. A big sticking point, residuals. The payments issued, for example, when an old movie airs on cable TV that don't pay as much from streaming.
But despite streaming recently overtaking cable television for audience size in the U.S., studios haven't really been able to turn a profit with it so far. Disney recently announced another $500 million of losses from streaming in the second quarter, and the entertainment giant has lost more than $11 billion on streaming since 2019, when it launched its Disney Plus service.
In spite of the recent success of the films Barbie and Oppenheimer, box office sales are still struggling to recover in the wake of the pandemic and the rise of streaming.
You have this really odd situation where every side has a problem. The studios have been losing a fortune trying to compete in streaming with Netflix. And there are fewer shows being made, and because theatrical exhibition has not rebounded anywhere close to what it was before, there's not enough money to go around or eyeballs to go around for either side to get what they need.
One thing the strike could do is increase the market for global productions, for example on Netflix, which has found big success with some international programming like the South Korean show Squid Game. But the issue of how to get consumers to pay for content, and the content creators, wherever they are, remains. As the strike drags on, things aren't likely to get much easier for anyone.
When they shoot a season in advance. So there's a lot of stuff in the can that they can show now and get away with it. So we might be stuck for another half year, another season anyway. It's really frightening. It's horrible.
Recent meetings between the studios and the unions could be a sign of progress. But for now, this bitter labor dispute marches on. Ira Spitzer reporting in New York for DD India.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. India's chess wonder kid heads to a semi-final clash in the World Cup. India will face Ireland later in the first T20 cricket fixture of a three-match series. And the World Athletics Championships get underway in Budapest on Saturday.
Swagato to West Bengal, India's cultural epicenter. West Bengal invites you to share its richness, to be united as one family, with one shared vision of building a better tomorrow.
You're watching DD India News Hour. My name is Mark Lynn, and now let's get you all the sports news. And for that, here's Deepika.
Thanks, Mark. Now, let's quickly take a look at all that is buzzing in the world of sports. First, let's talk about what's happening in the world of cricket. Well, India's T20 team now take on Ireland later on Friday in the first of a 3-game T20 series. They will be seeking to respond strongly after a surprise series loss against the West Indies. Let's now take a look at how both the sides are preparing ahead of the clash.
After suffering defeat in the T20 I series against West Indies, India will take on Ireland in a 3-match T20 I series starting from today. The series will mark the return of Jasprit Bumrah and Prasidh Krishna after long injury layoffs. Bumrah is also handed over the captaincy of a relatively younger side. With the ICC ODI World Cup 2023 knocking on the doors, the progress of these two players along with the entire squad will be monitored. Apart from Bumrah and Krishna, uncapped players including the likes of Rinku Singh, Shivam Dube and Jitesh Sharma also got their national call with this series. For Ireland, Paul Stirling will be captaining the squad. Neil Rock and pacer Graham Hume have been replaced on the team by all-rounders Fionn Hand and Gareth Delaney. The bowling attack could be led by Benjamin White and Joshua Little. Harry Tector will also be under the spotlight as his form has been amazing throughout, given the fact he's featuring in several short format leagues across the globe. Ireland is playing with an unchanged squad against Team India. If we look at the past 5 clashes between India and Ireland, the men in blue have dominated the Irish squad. The head-to-head record between both squads stands 5-0 in favour of the Indian men. The Malahide Dublin pitch usually favours batting, giving an upper hand to the team chasing. Out of the 16 T20 international matches held at this venue, 7 were won by the team that batted first, whereas 9 were won by the chasing team. As there are many new faces on the Indian side, Ireland is pretty strong with an experienced yet stable selection. This will also ensure that Bumrah is on his toes as the match will surely go down to the wire. Sports Desk, DD India.
Indian chess Grandmaster R. Pragnananda has now become the first Indian after Vishwanathan Anand to enter the Chess World Cup semi-finals. Well, Pragnananda beat fellow Indian Grandmaster Arjun Arigaisi by 5-4 after a tie-breaker round. Pragnananda will next face Fabiano in the final 4. The World Athletics Championship will get underway in Budapest on Saturday. Over 2,000 athletes from 202 countries are taking part over 9 days of what could be a record-breaking action. The 19th edition of the World Athletics Championship marks Hungary's debut as host of the premier athletics event. A total of 28 athletes from India will participate in this event. Indian javelin thrower Kishore Jina received his visa to travel to Hungary, paving the way for him to compete at the World Athletics Championship in Budapest. Well, Jina was given an appointment by the Hungary embassy today. Confirming the development, Athletics Federation of India said that his visa has been cleared after his appointment on Friday morning. Athletics Championship will kick off on Saturday and Kishore Jina will leave for Budapest on Sunday. In tennis, Novak Djokovic has solidified his legacy further, surpassing Rafael Nadal's record for the most undefeated matches. It made the achievement with the 19th straight victory against Gael Monfils. After a hard-fought loss in the 2023 Wimbledon final, the Serbian is currently preparing for the upcoming US Open event. He's competing at the Cincinnati Masters and making his first appearance at the event in 3 years. Djokovic only needed 1 hour and 8 minutes to outclass the in-form Monfils by 6-3, 6-2 in the 3rd round. He now claims the record for undefeated head-to-heads on the ATP Tour. The 23-time Grand Slam champion eclipsed Rafael Nadal's previous record of 18 consecutive victories in a row. Now, FIFA chief Gianni Infantino says that Women's World Cup has generated more than $570 million in revenue. He also added now it has enabled football's global governing body to break even despite raising the prize money tenfold as compared to the 2015 tournament. Now, England will play against Spain in the finals in Sydney on Sunday.
We've said it, football unites the world, but we need to do more. We have to speak a little bit as well about the money. We have increased, of course, the contributions and prize money to $152 million also there. Some were hesitating. We have specific recommendations for a part going to women players themselves. Well, this is simply 10 times more than the global prize money in 2015. So in 2 editions, we multiplied by 10 what we do. And when it comes to the level of service for the teams, the women's national teams and the men's national team had exactly the same level of service in terms of training camps, hotels, travel. So full equality has been reached there.
So this is definitely a revolution for women in the world of sports. That's all from the world of sports. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Deepika. And clearly, our next story is going to be something that you will like. These are stories that go beyond the headlines.
The sales of artificial flowers frozen in blocks of ice are flourishing in Japan as the Tokyo-based company opened its studio last year to seek other ways to use ice. The customers buy the ice displays to give it as gifts to their loved ones. Jordanian music teacher and artist Dima Swedan volunteers to hold musical activities, also a tool of therapy for children with special needs, based on her belief of the positive impact of music in children's lives. To receive the blessing and enjoying the special Mass on the San Roque's Day, dogs and cats dressed in dapper attire by Catholic Catherine Taraga. With the Barbie doll motto, you can be anything, an 11-year-old Bosnian doll maker, Esma Glajeva, creates traditional Balkan divas, high-quality costumes, headdresses, and decorative aprons for her collection of Barbie dolls. With Bureau Inputs, DD India.
And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lynn, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.